88. Vast numbers of laws criminalize bad behavior. Few are stopped from assaults and murders, but we'll throw you in the pen to cut and beat on each other. And there's always potassium chloride or 50,000 volts to just get rid of you. I want us to hurry up with law that prevents violence, especially the savagery about to capital punish 8 billion innocent folks. You're tired of my endless howling about war genocide no one's ever prevented. So are you finally mad enough at them to put your legal foot down? Why don't you tell this 40-hour yapper to chill? Design world peace in 10 seconds. 20 words. Okay. Your movement against corporate government corruption, for disarmament, democracy, and anti-bigotry education by treaty, courts, Congress, and presidents you persuade. Will that do? Not rocket, but anti-rocket science. Israel-Palestinian war this year of 2024 is the ultimate example of the exact black opposite of the love law utopia that my 20 words direct. They fight over land plentiful enough for all if only they didn't hate each other so much. Iran sends the Arab Muslims rockets and machine guns. America sends Israeli Jews bombers and thousands of giant bombs. To ensure decades into centuries of hate, attack, and revenge, most war leaders insist on ultimately effective murder of non-combatant women and children. Hamas plotted 2 years to machine gun babies. Israeli army, executive, and legislature leaders launched the perfect permanent answer. Bomb, starve, dehydrate, destroy every dwelling of and medical facility for, depower, freeze, then finally drive into the Sinai desert 2.3 million Gaza Palestinians, of course forever denied their own Palestine. The 70% of Israelis who are appalled by their own future ruination from the war power freak only threatened by peace will vote out Netanyahu, only to replace him with decades more militarized apartheid, essentially directed by the thousands more 2,000-pound bombs supplier. Americans, mostly horrified only by the spectacular Hamas savagery that forever rocketed all Middle East hate and horror into orbit, elected just the man thrilled to explode his Arab and Muslim hatred ever higher by ruining all Gazans into permanent revolt, exactly as every American bomb and bomber company pays him millions for, all to steal taxpayers' trillions for them, of course. All but a few people on earth are unable to drive the thousands of lies for war out of our heads to finally reveal the glaring truth. Weapons for money make war. Booming hate, along with the billion corpses and billions of ruined survivors, springing 1,000 times more money, all for the warriors and weaponeers. All people can only obey the big lie that our next $100 trillion will buy world peace. Certainly not 9,000 mushroom clouds to relieve our dehydration and starvation from unaddressed global scorching. Trust us. In the Middle East, this 1,000% hate for 75 years, primarily caused by weaponized Israel's apartheid over the Palestinians, is due, If my disarmament and love re-education campaign dies with me, ignored by you, to fester on fire for 75 more years, and our not American bomb resupply and single UN veto of any international peace enforcement 4-year promised by Palestinian hater and punisher Donald Trump? Only you, a myriad yous, could end this evil hell on earth. Tell Donald to continue huge defensive support, such as spectacularly successful anti-missile systems able to shoot down 297 of 300, all fired within hours. But also tell him to stop destroying such wonderful security help against long-range attack with his own deliberate war perpetration. His industrial cronies' weaponization of hate, pending their invited world doomsday. The peace you claim you want, sir, is not lies for war. It is disarmament to stop the killing with weapons. Well, duh. Very few nations and their populations do not demand Palestinian self-rule. Israel and its 50% of world weapons selling sponsor, claiming to be the world's greatest democracy, thumb their noses at appalled humanity. Israel reasonably demands that no Hamas exist to strap on machine guns and rush over undefended borders into kibbutzes and concerts, but unreasonably refuses to practice what it preaches. Tell Trump to tell them that rooting a last 2,000 rebels out of tunnels is not accomplished by torturing, blasting, and starving the other 2.3 million Gazans. The real purpose of genocide is only exactly what it does: total population murder and ruination of the hated group. Ideally, decades continued for money married to power. Instead, Mr. Netanyahu, use your military power near victory, except for endless rebellion incitement today, to coerce Palestinian disarmament with your conversion from attack offense to border defenses only. As I name our world-saving treaty, isn't the jury in on 75 years of Israeli military dictatorship over crushed colonies, Gaza and the West Bank? Clearly the same war, 75 more years, right? Does slavery enrage the victims? Does a bear shit in the woods? Do fish get wet? My problem is with 99% of humanity with family care IQs of 200. Their 100-hour weeks genius and saint level. Loving care strategy and work for literally centuries more of their young ones' safe, happy fulfillment. But then we same 4 billion heroes reserve only 100 seconds a week, turning public care of us 8 billion over to jackals, falling for the lie their 5-year-olds could see right through. All those enemies that our wars made against you are coming to kill you with weapons we forced them to buy, unless you give us total power and trillions more bucks to make them ever madder and more dangerous. Now, this is not your prohibitively expensive doom. It's actually your national security. Now, don't laugh. American, Russian, and Israeli military governments have crushed their populations 75 years each with this enthrone us, screw you power, bestiality. Not private, but public humanity's fatal flaw that I live to heal. Our 200 IQ family love and protection drops to dumber than rocks 20 by giving the jackals the money, weapons, and lawless freedom to complete our extinction in 5 more damn minutes. When your one public hour every so often could doomsday proof your 100. So wise up and act, kiddies. I mean parents, if you want anybody to grow up and old. How many more of my speeches will you choke down? I hear you shouting, "Shut up, Steve-O!" No. But Thoreau said, simplify, simplify. You need to sue in your federal courts for nuclear and conventional disarmament, already world and national law, that a number of tyrants and an unlimited number of blind, power-whipped public workers totally ignore and break. Get every private dollar gifted to politicians and candidates totally outlawed. Campaign to convert the UN from single bomber veto of international peacekeeping halt of aggression to General Assembly interventions that simply support the recurring UN International Court of Justice peace rulings that finally no veto-destroyed small power council can ever overrule again. Then influence your nation's joining of the new empowered General Assembly's multiple votes to stop any and many wars by contributing a percentage of your national soldiers to do it. Then get your Congress to vote funds for food, water, and all other aid to heal the war-torn once peacekeepers bar the aggressors from attacking aid-in corridors or anywhere else. 90% of all this is already national and international law that you must demand legal teeth to realize, not spit on. Ask thousands of constitutional and international law professors to work pro bono on our lawsuits that modern history reveals judges to increasingly consider and favor those with public interest need and merit. Demand enforcement power for every decision, whenever possible by multinational economic carrots and sticks. Just military intervention when necessary. Exactly why the UN Court of Justice, backed by an empowered General Assembly, must be ready to add world authority to your burgeoning treaty and national peace laws. Indeed, most of your national lawsuits will not be realized until many other judges in other nations join forces against big weaponeer nations now ruling the world no differently than the millennia's single Caesars. And finally, our terminal century of arms dealer dictatorship. Simultaneously work through your government's executive and legislative branches also, and hawk our new border defenses only, swords into plowshares treaty, which will steadily convert the world's $2.3 trillion yearly murder bill to investment in the new water sources ASAP, and the 1,000 CO2 scrubber plants, when possible, to emergency hydrate us until we can bring back normal continental rains, no longer just coastal floods. Well, that's enough for your good start. Now get cracking! At risk of breaking my arm, patting myself on the back. I've learned good and thought hard to script lovely effects and certainly dodge disasters by totally redesigning major world disaster causes away from hurting and back to helping us. I'll even contribute a billionth of the work as an idea and motivation man. And who's got to do the rest? Yesterday, when you brush your teeth, do you look in a mirror? You demand. You go, girl. Double Y, hypermale aggression chromosomes, have been found by a couple of studies to afflict up to half of jailed violent offenders. Historians suspect similar genetics aberrant savagery to have driven many war criminals on up to genocide leaders like Genghis Khan, Stalin, and Hitler. Even more terrifying is tyrants' power and ability to recruit millions of perfectly normal XY or XX soldiers, politicians, bureaucrats, and ignorant voters to be cogs in their death machine. All 20 of 20 soldiers have, countless times, ethnic cleansed or raped, burned, and murdered hundreds of villagers per episode, fed only by unlimited hatred and machine gun ammo. Your world peace interventions will stop most, but not all, sociopaths, genetically or just environmentally ill, from heading up the peace law democracies that you lawfully institute. But then when some killer in office hankers for millions of troops to boom world wars and enough nukes to kill the competition, not to mention all of us when his battlefields turn against him, you've already taken away his dirty money, mega military, and megatons. But keep your eyes open. Hitler killed 7 million with poison gas. Rwandan Tutsis hacked up 1 million with machetes. And Hafez Assad tore up 600,000 by dropping barrels of TNT full of nails. Only your very complete, sharp, dangerous supply prohibitions will end genocide power. But your treaty fails without world love education. Lesson 1 recalls 10 millennia his story's hate education. Our religion is God's order and glory. All other false faiths are only Western infidels or Eastern villains to be destroyed before they come ruin our godly superiority. Our race, color, and special nation are perfect, virtuous, and above all other scum. War against them all, soldiers and babies alike, is our holy responsibility. When women ruled, fear of others was survival truth. The leaping saber-toothed tiger will land on your child unless a powerful fast hunter impales it first on his spear. Since men ruled alone, they teach everyone to hate and fear all human others. Always to allow and help greedy kings steal from or kill them for their own infinite power and riches. Everyone shouts, "My tyranny over and murder of a world of evil inferiors is my authority, justice, and righteous punishment." Only your treaty's world love education can remove their evil, selfish, hellish, lying propaganda, making most every mind stupid and servile. Today I talk directly. Faces and voices to classrooms on the other side of the world. Their national goals made sense like ours. Their facial colors and features were no less beautiful for being different. Their God and churches also teach love and help of all in the world. Actual holy books thoroughly lied about to excuse leaders attacking and robbing others for hate and greed. And let's look around. Many leaders so abuse their own citizens. So now that simple knowledge of each other's loving good and need of same from all fast becomes love of every nation, color, and belief for being not different and evil, but everyone's same worth and beauty. Let's put our heads together for the new or in fact old laws to direct everyone's actions to help, no longer hurt all. We'll then need nonviolent coercion to make them behave, starting with our world love communication. How many billions trapped in a system of harm for power persisted to the sad end without learning better? How many billions trained by loving parents to care for every mate, child, and friend grow to live and love to their last happy day? All we must do now is train and guide our lost leaders back to humanity. Get each started a single year, and most will glory in our movement for their next 50. Today, we'll start getting them to ditch weapons, slash armies, and thus enforce, not just hopelessly beg the totally bribed and armed to pretty please be nice anyway. We will Zoom and Skype 195 nations, children, and adults about our local and world drought crises and how to organize and commit everyone to build new water supply technology. Because just conserving soon-to-be emptying lakes won't stop this or fill them back up again. How are we going to save farms and rescue forests before they die and blow 80% too high CO2 to 150%? Doesn't every nation refusing present disarmament treaty law need people to make courts enforce negotiation and compliance before TNT wars go nuclear? A couple of years into our world love confab, actually long before we can institutionalize love education as a signed, ratified tenet of our new border defenses, swords into plowshares treaty, the tough day arrives when a half dozen power governments demand more and bigger wars against all those evil others. Then everywhere a real funny thing happens for the first time in his story. We tell him, no, we've been talking face to face with all those weird baddies and discovered that almost every one of those evil others were instead nice, good samers. So guess what you bad boys can do with every next irresistible battle? Hit the guitars with our apologies to Johnny Paycheck. Take this war and shove it. We ain't killing no one no more. My excuse for jumping to seemingly different topics is not leaving my theme. Bad leaders killed 1 billion. Now they're coming after your family. Here's better law to stop them, but only if you push it. Corporate lobby campaign money is always for the quid pro quo. Thousands of times more of your tax money. their tax breaks, or non-regulation to help them by hurting you. Let's amend our nation's constitution to forbid private gifts to leaders or candidates. While we're at it, amend it again to ban government borrowing above tax receipts, otherwise known as the Balanced Budget Amendment. The U.S. Congress and President are up to $37 trillion stolen from our grandkids and present taxpayers too, now forced to pay 40 cents of our every tax dollar for just interest on that debt. We are very few years away from full government failure to sustain this titanic debt. Our new president, after he and his Congress forced us to borrow $7 trillion they handed over to their corporation cronies during his last term, planned to finish our American fiscal suicide during his next term. Consider Stevie's new wrinkle to your amendment budget rescue. Pay down that debt to zero, too. Let's order a $740 billion annual budget surplus to get us back in the black. It'll only take us 50 years. Why do they borrow and spend like drunken sailors? $1 trillion for weapons that the dealers bribe them for. Several trillion for entitlement benefits grossly underfunded towards the imminent failure of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Most of our debt interest has to itself be borrowed, because if voters were actually taxed today for their benefits on top of the useless interest payments, they'd throw out every incumbent in a total fury. Here's one more amendment to fix this mess. Require entitlement programs to pay for themselves with necessary gradual 6-month hikes in age eligibility every 5 years. Incentivize younger adults with tax breaks to invest for part of their retirement. Congress only motivated to bullshit and curry favor for their next election victory will never do any of this. Nor will voters help until our movement educates the masses to give a rat's ass for our children's survival and solvency, not to mention our own about to crash and burn. Indeed, if courts refuse to enforce our treaty that requires full and sincere negotiation towards world nuclear and conventional disarmament, make that a constitutional amendment too. Boil my 100 speeches down to 2 words: save ourselves. Politicians could fairly soon convert from private jackals to public servants, but only after a few elections 100% publicly financed. Then thousands of rescue candidates would burst up with equal public media funding, never again to lose 96% of the time to corrupt, money-dominant incumbents. Here's one of the topic hops I warned you about. Let's talk about peace through strength, the post-World War II 70-year slogan from American weaponeers who also sold this intimidation propaganda to the world while killing 15 million people, 90% civilians, with those weapons, causing not strong peace, but the titanic escalation of 250 wars. Now let's go back through 7,000, not just 70 years of his story. Thousands of royal or pretend democracy leaders and diplomats arranged thousands of the briefest of ceasefires, always fully weaponized, because not one in 1,000 allowed one word on the unheard of or totally censored subject, disarmament. Besides, gods always spit on order to pound our swords into plowshares, that is. And what happened then? 99 times out of every 100 big war, little pauses. Armies and arsenals were never left built up to the moon to remain idle, but to roar down on us all like Niagara pouring far gone over the edge. Gravity undenied. Implacable intent plus maximum power equals boom. Peace through strength is just the lie that sells weapons and pays soldiers. All war leaders and their slick diplomats only talk peace to calm their victims on both sides out of revolt against the actually allied in war theft leaders, and to stop them from asking how masses of soldiers and weapons forever preventing peace ever helped or saved anyone. Speaking of peace through strength, here's another oxymoron: weaponized ceasefire. 1 million guns still loaded and 1 million fingers on 1 million triggers. While you enjoy such safety, hurry up and fork over another $1 trillion to double all forces after unceasing war resumption soon exhausts and destroys ammunition and soldiers. This game is forever, baby! Weapons are sold for profit and to kill people. 1,000% opposite of liars' protection and benefit. Yes, one army occasionally protects some from a worse army, but the 10 millennia story is 10,000 armies' murderous subjugation and incitement and growth of hundreds of armies and militias. The thousands of leaders and diplomats arranging microscopic ceasefires to rebuild bigger, better armies all remained career paid to repeat and institutionalize war forever with ever more weapons. Now all 8 billion are propagandized to believe that arms races are all humanity's food and water. So what are the chances for our only living, loving future? Disarmament? Is it just spoken by a single dying old man? Or words for you to repeat and act on? I haven't met you, but everyone I have met believes I'm on to something. So I'm passing you the baton. Don't drop it. Run with it, love. Only you can save the world and your family.